Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Hanamatsuri service for 2021. Nice to have everyone here and there joining us for this special service. It's always nice to be able to come together for Hanamatsuri and to reflect upon the story of the historical Buddha, the birth of the historical Buddha, and to remind ourselves of that story. And it's usually one of the most colorful services on our temple calendar, so it's always a special time during the spring. I would like to introduce you to our chairpersons for today. Today, serving as our chairpersons, back again are Squeak and Kiki. So they are still very young, so they don't need to wear their masks, but they were so excited. They really appreciate our Hanamatsuri services, and so when they knew the Hanamatsuri season and time was coming near for the service, they approached me and asked me, "Sensei, can we be the chairpersons for Hanamatsuri? Can we? Oh please, oh please, oh please, oh please." And so I said, "Well, okay." So, you listen to such enthusiasm to support the temple and to be a part of the services. You can't say no. Gee, it's just wonderful that they want to participate in these services, and just like so many of our members want to help out and do this and that for the temple. I really admire that and I appreciate that. So it's nice to have Kiki and Squeak here today. As you can see, they have their onenji on, so they are ready to join us for service. I'd like to share the service order for today's Hanamatsuri service. We will begin with the three treasures and then the Raisanmon. After this, I'll take my seat up on the altar and we will have sutra chanting. We'll start with the Sambujo and the Hyobyakumon for today's service, and then we'll chant the Ni Rai. So Nembutsu and Ekoku will complete the chanting portion of our service, and then I'll come back for our Dharma message. Okay? So with that, we will begin. Three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teachings. Raisanmon. Ninjin ukegatashi imasudeni uku, buppo kikigatashi imasudeni kiku, この未根性に向かってどせずんば、さらにいずれの章に向かって過去の身をどせん。大衆もろともに指針に参謀に消えし立て祭るべし。自ら仏に消えし立て祭る。まさに願わくば主情とともに、大道を体現して無常意を起こさん。自ら法に消えし立て祭る。まさに願わくば主情とともに、不 深く胸像に入りて知恵海のごとくならん。自らそうに消し立てまつる。まさに願わくば主情とともに、大衆を通りして一切無下ならん。無常人人未妙の方は、百千万号にも愛をことかたし、我今検問し従事することを得たり、願わくば如来の真実義を消し立てますらん。ナモアミダ仏、ナモアミダ仏、ナモアミダ仏、ナマンダ、ナマンダ、ナマンダ、ナマンダ。三部長、十二来。ナマンダ、ナマンダ、ナマンダ、ナマンダ、ナマンダ。Hyobyakumon. We are fortunate to live our lives in this world where each birth is difficult. We are even more fortunate to be able to meet Amida's vow of infinite light and life that transforms us to become truly human. On this Hanamatsuri day, celebrating the birth of the baby Buddha, we are reminded of the rarity, nobility, and preciousness of each individual life that is sustained by infinite causes and conditions. With humility and gratitude in our hearts, may we rejoice in the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, who had later become the Buddha, the fully awakened one. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda.
chu akuchi shik, ojo futai shi wodai, koga chorai mida son, gasetsu hi son kudokuji, shuzen muhen, yokai sui, shogyaku zengon, shoujo sha, eseshu, jousho, hiko.
Good morning again, everyone. So nice to be able to enjoy this Hanamatsuri service with all of you. For the last couple of years, we have not been able to get together as we usually would to come to the temple and prepare and to build our Hanamido, where we would house the image of the baby Buddha and to create this Lumbini scene. So we're all kind of missing that. However, this year we made a little bit of adaptations, and so we were able to set up outdoors the baby Buddha and the sweet tea, so people could do their Nembutsu pouring of the sweet tea over the baby Buddha at Enmanji last week, and here in Alameda in a few minutes we'll be doing that here. And so a little bit of change, but at least we'll be able to come together, and it's always special these days to come to the temple for any reason and to see a few of our members. We can't gather in large groups like we have in the past, but to be able to see each other in person rather than on a Zoom screen or something, it's always special. And so enjoyed that last week at Enmanji, and looking forward to the similar situation here in Alameda as well. So gradually we're able to make some changes and adaptations, and hopefully we can endure our pandemic limitations and get back to the ways that we have done in the past. Usually when we come to Hanamatsuri, we want to remind ourselves of the story of the birth of the baby Buddha, and it's such a wonderful time of year, and the flowers are indeed blooming, and so it's a special time of year, and so we enjoy and appreciate that. So as the story goes, King Suddhodana and Queen Maya had for many years tried to have a child, but were unable to for 20 years. And then one evening, the queen had an auspicious dream, and then she became pregnant. And it was customary at those times that when someone would become pregnant, they would go to the home, to the village of her mother, and to give birth to the child at her mother's home. And so Queen Maya and the king and an entourage of helpers and assistants were making their way to the mother's home. And on their way, they stopped at Lumbini garden to rest. So this is a scene, the place where the scene of our Hanamido is created. Usually, often, when we have a service at the temple, we might sing the gatha that is in our books, and it's called Lumbini's Garden. And I always pause at the title because they made it possessive, Lumbini's Garden, rather than Lumbini Garden. And so I don't think it's supposed to be possessive, and it always, to me, I've shared this story before, but to me it sounds like a pizza joint, doesn't it? Lumbini's Garden. Could be like Luigi's Garden, right? So after the birth of the baby Buddha, everyone was in Luigi's Garden, where they celebrated with pizza and pasta and a round of beer. So it should be Lumbini Garden, not possessive, and this is the setting that we are describing, okay? So after they got there to rest, it was the middle of the summer season, and the garden was mysteriously in full bloom. And the queen reached up to touch one of the flowers on the Oshoko tree, and at that moment, the baby Buddha was born. It is said that the earth shook in 6 directions, and a sweet rain fell from the sky to bathe the body of the baby. Flowers bloomed everywhere and fell from the sky. So with this very pleasant setting and scene, the baby Buddha was born. So often, in years past, we would hear that the baby Buddha, immediately after birth, took 7 steps, pointed to the earth, to the sky, the heavens above, to the earth below. And he said, in the heaven above and on the earth below, I alone am the world-honored one. And every time I read that, and other people as well have commented that it doesn't sound like something the Buddha would say. It sounds kind of egotistical, praising his own life, his own being, rather than being humble and considerate. So is this really what he said? And people would wonder, you know, is this yet even fitting the story of the baby Buddha? And a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, there was a program on TV Japan, and one of scholar was researching the story of the birth of the Buddha, and he came up with different words, and that the Buddha was not praising himself, but honoring life, all of life. And so I've adapted that feeling, and so the new words, in the heaven above and on the earth below, of all things precious, each life is the most precious thing. So I have changed to use these words. So anytime you'll come to a Hanamatsuri service with me, I will share these words as the first words of the baby Buddha. So a lot of it is building up the story of the baby Buddha. There's no baby that's going to take 7 steps. That part is just story as well. Standing there and speaking, right? Each of these things are embellishments that he was a special person, and not to be arrogant and egocentric, but all of it is just to point out that he was a special person that was born that day. But the words that I will say came from him have been changed and adapted in the heaven above, on the earth below. Of all things precious, each life is the most precious thing. So after he was born, the king was so happy that he would finally have a son, and so he named the prince Siddhartha, which means every wish fulfilled. So he's very happy to have a son to take over after him and to be able to raise. And so a sad part of the story is that Queen Maya, 7 days after giving birth, passed away, and so the prince was raised by his aunt. So this is the story of Prince Siddhartha's birth. Later in life, Prince Siddhartha wanted to learn about the truths of life, and so through this he had come to be the Buddha, the awakened one. And so he awakened to the realities and the truths that surround all of us, the connections of all things, and then to share this, what he had come to see and recognize and realize, to share first with his friends, fellow seekers, and then to students and disciples as he became a very well-known teacher, sharing this with many, many, many people. And then his teachings continued even after he has passed away, to reach across oceans at the risk of life and death in many instances, crossing over to China, Korea, all the Southeast Asian countries, to go over the ocean to Japan, to Hawaii, to Europe, to America, and so continuing to move to Enmanji, to Alameda, and so touching each of our lives with the teachings of the Dharma that started with this birth of the baby Buddha. For him, because of his awakening, all of life became clear to him. His life and his actions became deeper and fuller as he became aware of the nature of all things. And so we can awaken too. We can recognize the causes and see the conditions just as he did. Our lives can become deeper and fuller, just like Shakyamuni's did. We can see the connections, be the connected, and ground our lives as we come to learn about the Dharma, to learn about ourselves, to follow in our Nembutsu path that Shindan Shonin has clarified for us. So this is why we come to the temple, and on Hanamatsuri we remind ourselves of the beginning of this whole cycle that has come to touch each of our lives. So with that, I would like to thank you for joining us. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amidotsu, Namo Amidotsu, Namo Amidotsu, Namanda, 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 Namanda. Thank you again for joining us for this Hanamatsuri service. There were many people involved to set up not only for this service, but for the Kambutsu and Enmanji and in Alameda, to prepare for people to come and visit, to enjoy the Hanamatsuri season and to pour sweet tea over the baby Buddha. So we want to acknowledge and thank everyone who was involved for each aspect of this event and weekend. So thank you so much for all of it. Thank you for all of it. We'll conclude with the Gassho. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida, Namo Amida, Namo Amida, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Namanda, 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 Namanda,